Hey, what's up, cats and kittens? And shout out to all my cerebralites. It is me, the Cerebral Diva, and I'm back with another episode of Reality, and that's TEA because I give it tea scalding hot. So grab your cups, grab your saucers, gather around, and let's all partake in this libation of Braxton Family Values tea. So here we are, Season 6, Episode 3. This most recent episode was aptly titled Living Legend, as it's centered around Toni Braxton being honored in Las Vegas by the Soul Train Music Awards Association. Toni was being honored, Tamar was performing. So the entire family, with the exception of Tamar and Tawanda, who's appearing in the play, or at least she was at that time, appearing in Two Can Play That Game. I believe she was an understudy for both Vivian Green as well as Portia Stewart or Portia Williams, whichever one she's going by this currently. So the two of them were absent. So the party planning was left up to both Tracy and Trina, who tried their best to plan a party, but it was underwhelming to say the least. And it was really interesting because they had I thought it was a really great idea to sort of dress up as Toni throughout the ages. But as they were sitting there at the table, Toni comes in and she's like, Trina, are you about to perform? And she didn't realize that Trina was actually dressed as Toni on her album cover or on her single cover, I believe, for Love Should Have Brought You Home. And I didn't realize it watching it. It's funny because they probably resemble Toni more when they're not trying to emulate her than they did when they were consciously trying to emulate Toni. I believe Tracy was probably the worst. She was supposed to be Toni in the Making Me High video, and it was not even remotely close. But anyway, I digress. So, with that being said, both Toni and Tamar were scheduled to perform at the Soul Train Music Awards, which they both did. Tamar was completely absent during this episode, and as well as the previous episode, so she hasn't been on very much this season, with the exception of B-roll. We saw footage of her performing I'd Rather Go Blind during the Soul Train Music Awards, and it was a very impassioned performance, especially given the circumstances that she's currently experiencing. So you can definitely see that she was sort of channeling those emotions into that performance. So I thought it was a really great performance overall. Tamar, say what you will about Tamar, her personality, her disposition. The girl can sing. I mean, that to me is irrefutable. Like, you can have whatever beef that you want to have with her. You can dislike her all day, but she can sing her face off. That's just a given as far as I'm personally concerned. And I'm really not a Johnny come lately to this whole Tamar bandwagon. I have the first album. I have the Braxton's first album, and I had them long ago. So, I've been a fan of Tamar for quite some time. Anyhow, and my favorite Tamar song is probably not even on, it's not on any of these. She has a song called Miss Your Kiss, and she also has a song called Money Can't Buy You Love, where she hits this sort of Mariah Carey bird note. You have to hear. It's probably two of my favorite songs by her, and they're actually songs that only true diehard Tamar Braxton fans would know. So anyhow, to get back on task here. So the episode was primarily about this impending divorce between Tamar and Vince. Now, this is one of those things where it's like it's hard to really have an opinion on it, right? Because as a woman, you want to support Tamar. I believe in women supporting women, but I also believe that it can't just be about women. Sometimes it has to be about supporting right versus wrong. So when you look at Tamar and that the relationship that both she and Vince have, very often it's easy to sort of vilify Tamar and think, she's loud, she's crude, she's boisterous, she's abrasive, she's cantankerous, she's all of these different things, everything that is sort of counterintuitive to what one might associate with a victim. And so when you look at Vincent seems to be very docile, very passive in his disposition, very laconic. He doesn't really say a whole lot. So when you see him, you think to yourself, if anyone is the victim in this relationship, more than likely it's probably Vince. And I'm not saying that he's necessarily the victim of verbal abuse. Physical abuse, but definitely verbal and emotional abuse, at least on the surface. So now that all of this information has been coming out recently about their relationship and about there being abuse, because I think most of us have heard about Vince biting her finger at one point in time. And it's so funny because even though things like that I was aware of, I had forgotten about them. In this pop culture world that we live in, things happen in such rapid succession that sometimes, your brain has to purge that data to make room for what's happening currently. And I do recall that there was that incident where 911 was called, and when they played it on the episode, I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. And so now when I think about sort of the history of their relationship, a lot of the dots are beginning to connect. And I'm starting to think that, okay, maybe because sometimes I think people will have this belief that, right, because someone is a great guy, that makes them a great boyfriend or a great girlfriend. The two things are mutually exclusive. See, sometimes the mirror can have two faces, right? So a person who's a great friend, a great dad, can be all of those things, but at the same time be abusive to their respective partners. And I'm not saying that that's the case with Tamar and Vince. I'm just saying that now that things are starting to unfold, I'm starting to pay closer attention to some of the things that Vince does and not necessarily see him as infallible to the degree that many of us have seen him, and sort of looking at Tamar as the sort of the catalyst, if you will, for a lot of the drama that has happened during that relationship. So not much really happened during this episode. Like I said, there was just a bunch of fodder about the relationship between Tamar and Vince. There was a visit to a marijuana store out in Vegas. Other than that, it was pretty much a very lackluster. The dad, Michael Braxton, dressed up in drag. I think I will be having nightmares about that for probably the next couple of years. That was, yes, that was pretty scary. I'm trying to think if there was anything else interesting that happened on this episode that's worth mentioning. That's really it. Right now it's really just about Tamar and Vince, and we'll see what happens. Hopefully, I'm sure I shouldn't say hopefully. I'm sure that more information will be coming out during this season, if you will. So stay tuned. Make sure you follow my reviews. Make sure you comment below. I want to know what you think, whether or not you believe Tamar's. Well, I guess I shouldn't even say Tamar, more so Evelyn's allegations of abuse against Vince. And it's been really interesting because Vince hasn't really said much to refute those allegations. So I'm not sure if that gives credence to what Evelyn says, or if that's Vince potentially taking the high road and just hoping that people will see him as the man that he is and not even, really give this a second thought. So make sure you comment below because I want to know what you guys think, whether or not you think Tamar is genuinely being abused, whether or not you think this is maybe some sort of calculated character assassination against Vince to make sure that they put Tamar in a position that she gets full custody of Logan, to make sure that in terms of the divorce settlement that she is that she receives the spousal support that she is deserving of. What do you guys think? I personally think, there was once upon a time, really quick, I really firmly believe that Tamar was simply with Vince just for the sake of what he could do for her. And, watching them over the last several years, what I've come to realize is that there is a genuine love that she has for him. Now, whether or not it's a romantic love, I don't think so. I don't really picture the two of them having this sort of passionate love making. But I definitely think that she loves Vince to the degree that she wants to work through their marital issues. But with that being said, you guys, please make sure you comment below because it's not just about what I think. I want to know what you believe. And as always, in closing, remember to live better, love harder, and think smarter. It is me, the Cerebral Diva, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Have a great day.